and welcome to another Genshin theory. I actually wasn't planning on doing a theory on Venti this week, because it was originally going to be about Zhongli, but then I got so sidetracked thinking about Venti that I had to push back the Zhongli video. But don't worry, that'll probably be up by next week. My whole brand here is loving Zhongli anyway, but today we're talking about Venti. My friends and I were casually joking about silly stuff in Genshin Impact when one of them brought up Venti's voice line for when he opens a chest. He says, "Thank Barbatos, wait a minute."
Thank Barbatos. Wait a minute.
That got me thinking about Venti's identity. I was right when I predicted that Baal isn't the Raiden Shogun, so there's already a precedent set for this kind of thing happening. Venti is said to be Barbatos, the god of freedom and Animo Archon. However, Barbatos seems to stand out from the rest of the Archons. He's often regarded as the weakest of the seven, the rest of the Archons don't really like him that much, and A doesn't even call him Barbatos, she calls him Venti.
I had an opportunity to feast with him once, back when I was just a Kagemusha attending a gathering of the gods. So he's made his choice. Be that as it may, I don't believe his story is anywhere near finished yet. That's the name the Animo Archon takes these days, is it? Truth be told, from the very first moment I met him, I could somehow sense that we were not going to get along.
In comparison, she calls Zhongli by his true name Morax, so there's no reason why she shouldn't refer to Venti as Barbatos. When taking their Gnosis, the Tsaritsa had the Fatui negotiate with Zhongli and A for theirs, while she had Senora violently take Venti's. A says she doesn't get along with him, and Zhongli literally spends 6 hours beating him up in his voice line about Venti.
That drunkard is a disgrace to the arts. Oh. Has he tricked you into getting drunk? You're slurring a little. Wait a moment. I'll brew a pot of sobering tea. It'll be ready in only 6 hours, so just wait a moment.
It wouldn't surprise me if the rest of the Archons had some kind of drama with Venti too. Barbatos was worshipped alongside the god of time by the original people of Mondstadt. We don't know why, but almost all traces of the god of time have disappeared. The only things we have left of the god of time are the sundials found near the Thousand Winds Temple and on the Nameless Island. The carvings on it say, "Seeds of stories brought by the wind and cultivated by time. Stories brought on by the wind will bloom into legends in due time." That's all we have about the god of time, just that they were really close to Barbatos, yet got erased from history somehow. I find it hard to believe that the god of time just vanished without a trace. If Venti really is Barbatos, then he should know something about him. But there's nothing. Instead, hear me out on this one because it sounds stupid at first, but what if Venti isn't Barbatos, but actually the god of time? Venti already doesn't fit in with the rest of the Archons. That could be a sign that he isn't actually one of them. Nobody even calls him Barbatos. We know gods can shapeshift, so it would be really easy for Venti to shapeshift into whatever Barbatos happened to look like and take over. Barbatos took the form of the Nameless Bard after he died defeating Decarabian, so maybe Venti did the same thing. Out of the 7, we know of 2 casualties that happened during the Cataclysm in Conria. The god of the woods, the previous Dendro Archon, and Makoto, A's twin sister. If the disaster was deadly enough to kill 2 Archons, why couldn't it be deadly enough to kill 3, especially if Barbatos was supposedly the weakest among them? Upon the death of their closest friend, the god of time would do exactly what Barbatos did when his closest friend died, take their form. The only difference is that Barbatos wasn't trying to steal the Nameless Bard's identity. In this case, the god of time, or Venti, is stealing the identity of Barbatos. That explains why Venti speaks freely about Celestia. Zhongli mentions a non-disclosure agreement, or NDA, with Celestia in relation to Conria. Although we don't get any details on it, I've theorized that it's a multilateral NDA involving all of the Archons and the Celestial Gods. Basically, that just means that the Celestial Gods forced the Archons to stay quiet about what happened in Conria, or maybe just not talk about Celestia at all. We don't really hear Zhongli or A talk about Celestia, but Venti does. I used to think that Venti was running the risk of his death or Mondstadt's destruction by doing that, but since he isn't an Archon during the Cataclysm, he's not included in the NDA. He can say whatever he wants with no consequences. But there's no clear reason for why the god of time would steal Barbatos' identity after his death. Venti goes on living like he is Barbatos. He talks to Dvalin like he knows him as Barbatos. He literally tells us that he's the Animo Archon. And that could be true. Venti, the god of time, may be the current Animo Archon, but he heavily implies that he's the Animo Archon of the past. Alternatively, I have another explanation for Venti being the god of time. There's literally a world quest called Time and Wind. I may be overanalyzing it, but I think the plot of this quest could actually be a metaphor for Venti being the god of time. To activate this quest, you have to go to the Nameless Island east of Stormbearer Mountains. It's unmarked on the map, much like the god of time being unmarked in Mondstadt's history. The island is small. The only notable thing there is the sundial I mentioned earlier. In case you don't know, sundials are an archaic way of telling time. There are clusters of wind throughout the island, but they're only visible from 2 to 5 a.m. To activate the next part of the quest, you have to get rid of the wind clusters using Anemo. Barbatos was literally a wind spirit before taking a human vessel, and here we are on a suspicious, unmarked time island getting rid of wind. That seems like a metaphor for the god of time and Barbatos having some kind of falling out. Once you've dispersed the wind clusters, you have to go fight an Eye of the Storm and glide to the Thousand Winds Temple. You'll have to get rid of wind clusters and fight Anemo enemies again when you're there. Now this could just be a normal world quest, I get that. But let's pretend that it's not for a second. Don't you think it's really weird that you're actively getting rid of Anemo throughout the entire quest when you're in Mondstadt? I can't think of another quest that's so heavily focused on Anemo mechanics and enemies. Like I said earlier, Barbatos is a literal manifestation of Anemo itself, and we just spent a lot of time fighting it. That seems pretty bad to me. And at the end of the quest, we get an achievement called Nothing to Lose But Time. Time and wind feels like a representation of the bitter end of Barbatos and the God of Time's relationship. Maybe Barbatos didn't die in Conria. The God of Time was wiped from history pretty soon after Decarabium was killed and Barbatos freed Mondstadt. Barbatos could have easily died sometime between the Cataclysm and Decarabian's death, and the God of Time could have taken his place. No one would suspect a thing, not even the other Archons. Barbatos is notorious for ignoring Mondstadt and being asleep all the time. It wouldn't be unreasonable to say that the God of Time killed Barbatos and took his place while he was away from Mondstadt. In that case, the Archon's hostility towards Venti may not be justified because they could have no idea that he's not their Barbatos. When the Cataclysm happened, we know that the Celestial Gods convinced the Archons to enter an NDA with them. But given how easy it would be to steal Barbatos' identity, the Celestial Gods might not even know that the God of Time is pretending to be him now. So when they all sign the NDA, the God of Time could just sign as Barbatos, knowing that they're not really him, and they will technically be able to say whatever they want. So in his voice line while opening a chest, Venti says, "Thank Barbatos, wait a minute." It's not just a joke or him revealing his true identity when it's just him and the Traveler. It's him remembering that he's supposed to be pretending to be Barbatos. And as for why, I'm not entirely sure. The God of Time was once worshipped alongside Barbatos, but was phased out in later generations. Mondstadt's people have a deep appreciation for their Archons, so maybe Venti wanted to preserve that and not let them think that their beloved Archon was dead. We saw how negatively people reacted when Zhongli faked his death as Rex Lapis, so I can assume a similar reaction would come from Mondstadt's people learning that Barbatos died in Conria. Or maybe it's not so friendly. After the Archon War, most of the gods who lost fled Teyvat and went to the Dark Sea, which is just the rest of the world away from Teyvat. But not all of them left. We know for a fact that the God of Time stayed in Teyvat because they were worshipped with Barbatos while he was the Anemo Archon. The gods who went to the Dark Sea did so because they were bitter and didn't like the winning Archons. It would make perfect sense for an angry god to stay behind and sabotage an Archon they lost to. The God of Time has motivations to kill Barbatos and take his place. There's a big problem with this theory, though. Venti has a Gnosis. But it's not confirmed that only Archons have them. On the Genshin wiki, it says it's unknown whether gods before the Seven possessed Gnoses. I previously theorized that only Archons have Gnoses because of their direct connection to Celestia, but it would actually make more sense for all of the gods to have them too. That way, Celestia has control over all of the gods instead of just 7 of them. The gods who fled to the Dark Sea probably got rid of their Gnoses before they left so Celestia couldn't control them anymore. We already know the Tsaritsa is taking every Archon's Gnosis so she can fight Celestia freely. Most of the other gods are either dead or outside of Teyvat, so the only Gnosis she really needs now are the Archons. Venti's Gnosis doesn't mean he's an Archon, all it means is that he's a god. I know that was a lot, so I'll summarize. Venti is not Barbatos, but the God of Time. Venti has been pretending to be Barbatos for at least 500 years, possibly longer depending on when Barbatos died. If he died in Conria, then Venti has carried on living as his dead friend to honor him. But if he died earlier than that, Venti stole his identity for power. And that's it! This is kind of a crazy theory, so I get it if you're not totally on board with it, because honestly, I don't even fully believe it myself. Child's banner just started, so good luck to everyone polling for him. I'm skipping because I want to try for Toma and Siwa Hu Tao, but let me know if you're polling for Child and I'll wish you good luck, and feel free to let me know if you already have him too. I mentioned that I'm working on a Zhongli video for next week, but now that Surumi Island is out, I might do a video on that instead. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye, besties!